Good morning, Grumpy Fly Fisherman fans. Larry G checking in. It's been a bit. Just want to get caught up with everybody and then might do a little product review. Boy, oh boy, it's been a busy time here in our household. Some really big changes coming for the Grumpy Fly Fisherman, all for the better. As I grow older with my wife. And we have some massive changes coming up that were a couple years down the road planned, but due to some unfortunate family circumstances, our retirement is basically going to be expedited. And the very exciting news for me is, and my wife, and Super Dog MJ, is we are going to be moving back to the Panhandle of Florida, probably this spring. So we have got a lot of stuff to do. Still been fishing quite a bit. Fortunately, things have changed here in Colorado. It's cold, it's fall. We went from 95 degrees today to this morning. I've got frost on my deck. I'm looking at it right now. And it's a little chilly. My fly tying room is not heated, so it's a little chilly out here. It's heated by, just off to my left, the exhaust from our dryer. So anyway, I just wanted to touch base with everybody again. I'm going to do a review on this episode. I've got a bunch of fishing footage that I need to go through and edit. Again, we've just been super busy here. Had to travel a little bit, and but now I have a chance to sit down and catch up. But I'm gonna do a review on this episode of the Grumpy Fly Fisherman of. Now, I've had this reel for a little over a year. It's my Loop Classic 456, and it is probably and it's the ported version. This is probably one of the most beautiful reels you can find out on the market. It's noisy, which some people like. It's got a pretty stout drag system, but I'm gonna do a review of this product on this episode, and then we will get back into some fishing action. Again, I've got a ton of stuff to edit. I've actually been fishing quite a bit on my days off anyway. Just super busy, and we have a lot of work here trying to get ready for our move. Which means basically my announcing career is waning. I've got a few more events to do here this fall, and then I'll wrap things up with World Cup skiing up at Beaver Creek, downhill training days. And then we're really going to start prepping for our move. Anyway, that's what's going on. Sun's coming up. Hopefully this frost will melt off our deck here pretty quick. So LG, the Grumpy Fly Fisherman, checking in. Let's get on to the review of the Loop Classic, the ported version of the Loop Classic 456 fly reel. It's a beauty. But you might find out some stuff that you didn't know about the reel. So that's the whole purpose. Anyway, let's get rolling with that. All right, gang. So let's talk a little bit about the Loop Classic fly fishing reel. This is the 456. They make it in larger versions as well. This weight, the 456, has some unique characteristics that you're probably going to want to know about. I'm going to fill you in on that. I've actually contacted Loop a couple of times over the past year just to ask them questions about it. Wow, the wind just kicked up like crazy. All the leaves are blowing off the tree. Here, I'll show you in my backyard real quick. It's fall. Windows are a little foggy. Yeah, it got windy as crazy. Windows are a little foggy this morning because we've got the dryer going and it blows into this room and it's freezing outside. Okay, back to the Loop Classic. Sorry about that. First of all, it comes with this super awesome leather case. Like, probably the nicest case that a reel can come in. Genuine leather, heavily stitched. It's got a nice little button type cover. Just like that is how it releases. And then inside is your Loop Classic 456. It is a beautiful reel. It's a small arbor, so it's, again, classic. That's what you're going to find on a classic reel, is a small arbor, which means if you're not familiar with small and large arbor reels, larger arbor reels have a larger diameter typically, for this same weight, 4, 5, 6. And they allow you to retrieve line faster, and you don't typically have to put as much backing on the reel. So with this Classic, you're going to load it up with quite a bit of backing to fill the spool up so you can get it full with the fly line. On this particular reel, I have loaded it with a Wolf triangle taper 6-weight fly line. I throw it on my, it's an older Loomis G4 model fly rod. It's a 9-foot, pretty stout. It's a 6-weight, pretty stout rod. It's a rod that I use on super windy days or if I'm throwing big streamers. And I love that triangle taper shooting head on this on the Wolf line. That's on here. We can do a review on that later. Held in place on the reel seat with a couple of heavy-duty stainless screws, but a beautiful piece of work. And right there you can see it's the Loop Classic, and that's the 456. They call it the 46 or the 46. Great reel, machined beautifully. It makes a lot of noise, which some people like. Personally, it's not a big deal to me. This is the only reel I have that makes a lot of noise, but some people love that. A very stout drag system and very easy to operate while you're fishing. So you can tighten and loosen the drag while you're fighting a fish pretty easily just by turning this knob. Love the reel. It's a little bulkier than some people might like for a 4-weight rod, and this is the smallest Classic they make. I think it's a little bit much. I fished this on my 5-weight and my 6-weight. It's perfect on my 6-weight. For the 4-weight, this is a pretty big reel. It's pretty heavy. Actually, I should get you the weight on that. I can put that in the notes when I post the video. But it's fairly heavy. Not a big deal, but super smooth and just a beautiful reel of fish. And you can see aesthetically wonderful. You know, when people see you on the river with this reel, they're like, that guy's got some class, unless it's the Grumpy Fly Fisherman. So those are the positives. I got it ported, so it's a little lighter. You can get it in a solid mode as well, solid plates on both sides. I like the ported lighter version, and I also like the way the ported looks. The spool is also ported on the inside. I don't know if you can see that as it rotates around, but the spool is ported. Now, let's get a reel that I love, and I fish it. I love fishing it, but there's a couple things going on with this reel that you as a consumer need to know about. They're not huge deals, but for some of you, they might be. The first setback with this reel and the first issue that I found with it, and I knew this when I bought the reel, the spools are not replaceable. So this does not come apart unless you actually take the handle off and take all these screws out to remove this cover to get to the spool. That's the only way you can remove it. You've got to be very careful if you do that because these screw heads can strip pretty easily, I've been told, by loop. So that's a problem for those of you that want to have multiple spools. If you just get this reel and dedicate it to one rod and one line, it's awesome. I've got enough gear to where that's the reason I got this reel. The other drawback with this reel, and this is kind of a big deal, and I didn't know it until I got the reel. So in the larger models, you can adjust the drag tension for when you're reeling in. You can make it a little tighter. It won't affect the outflow of the line when a fish is running. With the 46, when you tighten this drag, you are also tightening the ability to reel in the line. So right now, that's my drag tension going out. Pretty stout, but when I reel in, it's the same tension. So there's no way to adjust just the drag without affecting the tension when you reel in the line. On the larger models of the Classic, that's not the case. And I thought that was the case when I bought this reel. It's kind of a big deal. I keep it fairly loose. If I'm fishing for big fish, you know, then you just got to deal with a looser drag on it. And I throw this on a bigger rod. So typically when I'm throwing this, I'm throwing it for bigger fish. So that's a problem. And the other part of the problem is if you have a bigger fish on and you have your drag set pretty light and the fish is taking off and running on you, you can't palm this. So when the line goes out, just the handle is all that's spinning on the outside of this reel. And on this side, same, there's nothing spinning. It's all internal. So you can't palm like a typical flyer reel. You can't palm the spool to try and slow the fish down. So that, to me, is an issue. You know, I own the reel, I fish the reel, I love the reel, but that's an issue that could get you in trouble, potentially fighting a big fish. I lose plenty of big fish, it's not a big deal. But I think that that's something that you should know. But again, if you want to just commit this to one rod with one line, like I have on my 6-weight, my 9-foot older Loomis G4 rod, which again is a rod I use for throwing streamers and bigger bugs and in the wind. This combination, this line combination, this Wolf Triangle Taper 6-weight with that rod on this reel, it's perfect. So, you know, for the amount of money you pay for this reel, it's an expensive reel. I think that's kind of a bummer and a setback. But with that said, I love this reel. I love the way it looks. Other than that, I love how it performs. It's super smooth. One other thing. I had this reel in the case for probably, I hadn't fished this for about 2 or 3 months. And I packed up and went to Decker's on the South Platte and brought my 6-weight. It was going to be a pretty windy day, and we have some bigger fish over there, so I wanted to bring my big rod and just fish it for a day. When I got there, as you know, as fly fishermen, my leader had, you know, a lot of times you get your rod out. There's ways to avoid it, but you get your rod out and the front end of your leader has sucked in between the spool and the actual body of the reel. On a typical reel where you can take the spool out, you just pop it off, get the leader out, re-rig, get ready to go. That day when I got to the river, my leader had somehow, you know, loosened on the spool and ended up in the seam between the spool and the reel body. And I couldn't get it out of there. It was, you know, I slightly pulled it to get the last, I don't know, it might have been like 12 inches back where it had sucked in. And it got stuck. And I spent 10 minutes trying to get that leader out of there until I finally put the reel back in the case, and I brought 2 other rods with me, so I fished my 5-weight that day with my Ross reel, my Ross San Miguel. And when I got home, I sent an email to Loop and let them know what happened, and they said they didn't know how that could happen, and I told them what had happened. Anyway, I worked on it for probably, I'm gonna say 15 minutes. Cut the leader off so I could just work with that, because you can't take this spool off without taking the whole reel apart. And this reel is pretty much brand new. I didn't want to do that. So I worked with the leader, chopped off a bunch, got a couple of ends to where I could kind of work with it manually with my other hand while I held the reel. And I was eventually able to just kind of pull it out of there and get it out and leave the reel undamaged and ready to go. So when you store this reel in the case, I recommend, and this is one of the good things about this reel, you can take your leader end, and there's a little rubber bushing right here on this counterweight on the handle, and you can wrap it around in there and it'll hold right there, which I didn't do, so partially my fault, but still, it was a pain. And in the future now, when I have a new leader on here, when I'm done fishing, I'll pull it out and I'll wrap it around this rubber bushing right here, which I think is why that's there, is to hold your leader. Other than that, the stainless steel handle is beautiful. Rotates super smooth. Another nice feature. But that's it. That's my review of the Loop Classic.